I'm Will Self inside the NFL Network newsroom. Well, the 49ers had a bye week way early in the season, week 4 to be exact. And since then, they've seen the injuries pile up, and this is what makes earning a playoff bye so important. It gave their walking wounded more time to heal, and among those benefiting from it the most is defensive end Dee Ford. Ford was limited during practice, but he is on track to play Saturday against the Vikings. He's been out since week 14 after re-aggravating a nagging hamstring injury. He initially suffered the injury in week 11 against the Cardinals. Safety Jaquiski Tartt also present for practice and will be ready to go from his rib injury. And perhaps the most surprising news out of Niners practice came from linebacker Quan Alexander. Alexander cleared by the medical staff after tearing his pec in week 9. He's in line to take the field against the Vikings as well. He had participated in bonus practices during the bye week. Alexander following the lead of J.J. Watt, who also returned from a torn pec injury. One Alexander that won't be seeing the field is Vikings corner Mackensie Alexander. NFL Network's Tom Pelissero reporting Alexander will undergo arthroscopic surgery for a small tear in his lateral meniscus. According to Tom, Alexander can return to action if Minnesota advances. Now, we had a busy Tuesday morning here as Patriots special teams coordinator and wide receivers coach Joe Judge was hired to be the Giants' new head coach. Judge had an offer to take over at his alma mater, Mississippi State, but as NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport reported, Judge delayed the decision long enough for the Giants to offer him their head coaching job. Now, prior to his 8-year stint in New England, he had spent 3 seasons at Alabama with Nick Saban. Judge's hiring came less than an hour after word came that Matt Rule would be the Panthers' next head coach. We had breaking news here, had the chance to talk to Carl Banks, 2-time Super Bowl champ for the Giants, and I asked him how the relationship would go between Gettleman and Judge, and he seemed to be a little miffed, thinking, why is there this narrative out there that Gettleman would potentially be difficult to deal with? So that was a point that he brought up in our breaking news coverage, something I'll leave to all of you to discuss.
Yeah, we've got Shaun O'Hara here, the perfect person to be here on this day to talk about this. Thank you so much, Will. Joe Judge did spend 8 seasons on Bill Belichick's staff. He has 3 Super Bowl rings from then, 2 national championship rings at Alabama. No head coaching experience, though. Shaun, what do you think of the hire for Big Blue?
Yeah, Will's talking about, the question marks about Dave Gettleman. As I sit here at the breakfast table with you guys, I just flashed back to yesterday. What a wild day it was. I just happened to be at the building, and I actually sat down at the lunch table with Dave Gettleman. So I don't understand all the gruff about Gettleman.
This is before or after the hire?
This is after the hire was announced. Now, it was a wild day at the Giants facility yesterday, and when I went in there, everybody was talking about, well, is Matt Rule, what's going on with that? He was still on the tip of everybody's tongue, and then that got announced that he went to Carolina, and everybody was like, whoa, what happened? It went from like, did we lose Matt Rule, to then all of a sudden Joe Judge gets announced. And, I bring up the Dave Gettleman thing because we kind of had a nickname for him. We call him the Hog Father because he loves his hog mollies. Well, this hiring felt like a scene straight out of like The Godfather or The Sopranos, because it was basically, all the Giants fans saying, who is this guy? What is this Joe Judge? What are we doing here? Never heard of this guy. And then everybody said, oh, okay, hey, settle down, relax. Hey, he's one of ours. He's a friend of ours, right?
He's part of the family.
He's a made guy, right? This guy knows Nick. You know Big Nick?
Big Nick?
South Alabama.
Oh, yeah. Nick Saban?
Who we call when we got to get rid of some people. This guy knows Big Bill, right?
Yeah.
So everybody said, okay, all right, hold on.
Billy from Boston.
He knows some people. This guy's a made guy. We can't touch him. We got to, all right?
Yeah.
And it felt like that all day long. So even for me, I didn't know Joe Judge. So I'm talking to guys in the building, and I'm saying, all right, tell me what's going on here. Blown away with the interview. Blown away with Joe Judge at 38 years old, how enamored he was in the interview, how the youthful exuberance, and the plan.
What do you mean by plan?
The plan to take one of the youngest rosters in the NFL that has been built by Dave Gettleman through the draft and with the salary cap purges over the last couple of years, and to take this young pup roster and to say, you know what, we're going to change the course of this franchise because we're going to get back to playing physical football. They really haven't had a physical team since Tom Coughlin was there. And it's been two different offenses. And I think this game plan for Joe Judge is, look, we're going drills, baby. We're going back to the basics. We are going live tackling. We're going, one-on-ones. We're bringing back some drills that some of the veterans may not really like, but we're going to bring back some roll tide drills. We're going to bring back some in the trenches physical style play because we've got the hogs up front to do it. And I think that plan, in addition with the fact that he's not a slash coordinator, I'm not calling plays. I'm just basically running the show here as the head coach.
They need that.
He's been great with the game management.
Shaun, let me interject quickly. And I know you got to talk. But if I'm a vet on that team, if I'm Golden Tate, or if I'm a young Saquon Barkley and a coach is coming in and I'm hearing whispers about him bringing a physical style of play, Saquon couldn't even last 16 games. Golden Tate is in his 30s. You know how it is. You've been in the locker room where a coach comes in and is like, we're going to go back to being physical. The first thing players do is go like this. Here we go again.
Hold up. Were you there? Do you know who I talked to in the cafeteria?
No.
Golden Tate walked in.
See? That's my guy.
You got guys everybody.
I got guys too. I got guys too.
And
you know what I mean, though?
To your point, that was absolutely one of the concerns. All right, what are we going to do with this guy that's coming in here? Is he going to grind us out? Great thing about it is the CBA said you can only put full pads on 7 days in training camp.
Good point.
So it's not going to be an issue. I'm sure there will be a little bit of like, oh, man, what are we doing here? But when a guy walks in and says, look, here's how we're doing it. Oh, Coach, why are we doing that? Well, it worked in college. No. This worked in the NFL, too. He's got 3 Super Bowl rings, so he's been a part of that. So I think the credibility is there. And then the other thing I said to Golden Tate was, man, you're a receiver. What you talking about hitting for, man? Go on out there on the bubble screen.
I think they love the idea of a process and of a management-style coach. He's going to be a CEO coach. So he's a special teams coach, which means he's not going to be in Daniel Jones' ear on 3rd and 12 and saying, hey, we've got to do this route and you got to do it this way. He is there to be the CEO. So the coordinators will run the offense and the defense. And everybody I've spoken to, and I got to tell you guys, I'm going to be honest and vulnerable here. 24 hours ago, I could tell you Joe Judge is not a name that was on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, you're not shocked often.
I'm not shocked. And I don't know Joe Judge. I like to fancy myself as the guy who, I don't know him yet, and I will get to know him, but I don't know Joe Judge. So I asked everyone who would with Alabama roots and with the Patriots roots, and everyone was glowing about what a coach he will be because of his management style. He is a stickler for details, discipline, and he is a winner. Take a look at what his past decade was. Take a look at this past decade because this guy right here, championship, 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 championship.
His boat says 6 rings.
Yeah, you know what? And let me tell you something. Who he's learning from is not just, but I was there for a cup of coffee. Like, he was on Nick Saban's hip, and then he was on Bill Belichick's hip. So if there's any osmosis of what you can learn from what a championship culture is, it might not come from the head coach at Baylor.
Yeah.
It might come from the guy who has been around those guys for the past decade.
I'm not trying to be negative, and I wasn't trying to be negative by trying to give you the player's perspective.
But Shaun, it's real.
You know this.
It's real.
When you see that, as impressive as the championships might be, you know what players on the roster see? What do they see, Shaun? They see your head coach was a former special teams guy. And that also almost gives the players in the locker room this, like, feeling that he's going to have to prove himself. Because if he walks in and he doesn't know what he's talking about, you could lose the team before you grab him.
Hey, John Harbaugh was a special teams guy.
I know.
It's been done before.
Yeah.
And I think the fans are also, I hear the fans here in New York, and they're like, special teams guy?
Right.
So, like, I'm just trying to give the fan and the player's perspective. Yeah. He could be awesome, and maybe he will be. I understand why there's some questions.
Yeah, it's a great point.
I'll do the fan perspective here. You guys are both giving the player perspective. If I'm a Giants fan, I'm thinking that's great, but that sort of pedigree doesn't always lead to success, especially from New England. Eric Mangini, Romeo Crennel, Josh McDaniels did not have success. So I want to know this morning, why does this 38-year-old new head coach that's never had any experience, why is he going to be different? I'm excited for him to prove that to this fan base.
Yeah, and I think to your point, the age thing, I think is big. I think when you look at today's NFL players, look, I feel like King of the Hill over here telling these boys to get off my lawn. These young pups, these young guys, you have to communicate with them.
You have to relate to them.
So to be in the college ranks, these college coaches, you know what they spend when the football season ends? They spend the next 3 months communicating with high school kids, college kids. I mean, it's texting, it's social media. That part of it is totally evolving. But the special teams aspect of it, and you just touched on it. When you're a special teams coach, guess what you've got to do? I've got to coach defensive players that have never run the football or never blocked. We're running offensive plays with defensive guys. I've got offensive guys that I've got to teach how to tackle, right? And I've got 5 to 7 guys that don't even want to be on special teams, so I've got to motivate them. So as a special teams coordinator, you've been motivating all 3 areas of the team. That's what you're in charge of doing as a head coach. The X and O's, I think the great point is he's got to spend time